There seems to be a whole village, run down, abandoned and decaying. People actually used to live here.
Abandoned buildings have always had a certain charm. The allure of forgotten, decaying structures tells the story of their former glory, leaving us to wonder how they went from being bustling hubs to silent, crumbling relics of the past. Sometimes these buildings seem to take on a life of their own, their eerie quietude almost inviting us to uncover their mysteries. And while many of these abandoned sites are left to nature's whims, others become tourist destinations, urban legends, or settings for bizarre, sometimes even hilarious encounters. Today we're taking you on a tour of 15 massive abandoned structures that will not only boggle your mind, but probably have you laughing at their strange, sometimes ridiculous stories. From colossal unfinished hotels to the eerie remnants of Soviet-era projects, these structures are more than just abandoned. They're monuments to failed dreams, questionable decisions, and a whole lot of weird history. So buckle up, because you're about to embark on a journey through some of the weirdest, most fascinating abandoned structures ever to be left in the dust. Number 15. Prora, Germany, the Nazi beach resort that never was. Let's start with what sounds like the plot of a terrible historical fiction novel. In the 1930s, the Nazis had a strange vision for leisure. They wanted to build a massive beach resort on the island of Rügen in the Baltic Sea. This was meant to be a vacation destination for the average German worker, where they could kick back, relax, and enjoy the waves after a hard day's work for the Third Reich. The result? Prora, a gigantic 4.5-kilometer-long complex designed to house 20,000 vacations at once. That's right, a 20,000-person beach hotel. The architecture is both imposing and somewhat comical, looking like a dystopian hotel straight out of a Cold War spy thriller. It was supposed to be a shining example of Nazi architectural prowess. Instead, construction was halted during World War II, leaving only a half-finished concrete monolith. Now it sits as a bizarre historical reminder of a regime's grandiose and utterly impractical ambitions. Number 14. The Ryugyong Hotel, North Korea. North Korea's Ryugyong Hotel is the epitome of building a dream and then totally ignoring it. In the 1980s, the country embarked on constructing what was meant to be the tallest hotel in the world. Standing at 330 meters, the pyramid-shaped structure was supposed to have 3,000 rooms, revolving restaurants, and attractive views of Pyongyang. But things quickly went south. Construction was plagued by economic troubles, international sanctions, and a lack of materials. For nearly 30 years, the Ryugyong Hotel was little more than an enormous concrete skeleton, a symbol of North Korea's grandiosity and mismanagement. The structure earned the nickname the Hotel of Doom due to its prolonged, unfinished state. In recent years, North Korea has made attempts to finish it, but its grand opening remains a distant hope. You'd have better luck booking a room at your local Motel 6. Number 13. Croco, Italy. In the rolling hills of southern Italy, there's a place so dramatically abandoned that it looks like someone left halfway through a ghost movie. Welcome to Croco, a medieval village frozen in time, and also kind of frozen in mid-air, since gravity did its best to claim this once thriving community. Croco's story starts out like any quaint Italian village, tucked into rocky hills with picturesque views and a charm that would make even the most cynical tourist feel nostalgic. Founded around the 8th century, the town flourished for centuries, its cliffs providing a natural fortress, perfect for defense. But by the 1960s, Croco's charm took a darker turn, and not in the way the villagers had hoped. The first major culprit? Landslides. The town had a slight geographical hiccup, perched atop a hill which looked excellent for protection but terrible for stability. Between tremors, slipping cliffs, and the occasional earthquake, Italy's own special brand of drama, Croco began to slowly slide off the map, literally. In 1963, a particularly nasty landslide made it unsafe for the remaining residents, and the town was officially abandoned. Not to be deterred, Hollywood producers soon came knocking, deciding that Croco's post-apocalyptic look made it the perfect backdrop for films like the Passion of the Christ, and Quantum of Solace. It turns out, when your town looks like it might topple at any moment, it makes a perfect set for religious epics and spy thrillers. Today, Krakow stands as an eerie ghost town, with crumbling stone buildings, empty streets, and the occasional brave tourist walking through a place where history and gravity had a falling out. If you're ever in the area, bring your camera and hold on to it tightly, lest you be the next thing to fall for Krakow. Number 12. Sanji, Taiwan. In the 1970s, Taiwan decided it was time to get futuristic, so naturally they built a bizarre complex of UFO-shaped homes on the coast, thinking it would be the next big thing. Welcome to the Sanji Pod Village, a place that looks like the set of a 1970s sci-fi movie if the movie was called What Not to Do with Your Real Estate Investment. The idea behind Sanji was simple. Create a luxury vacation spot with UFO-inspired pods that would attract the rich and famous. They were supposed to be sleek, modern, and a symbol of Taiwan's bold leap into the future. The pods, round, metallic, and utterly out of place on the cliffs, seemed like a fantastic idea in theory. The only problem? The village was doomed from the start. Construction began in 1978, but it quickly ran into problems. Mysterious accidents, including fatal ones involving workers, started to build a bad luck aura around the place. Local rumors claimed the site was cursed, perhaps by a ghostly force that didn't appreciate the 70s obsession with sharp angles and shiny materials. Whatever the reason, the construction stalled, and what was supposed to be a luxurious vacation spot turned into an eerie ghost town long before the first guest could check in. By the 1980s, the Sanji pods were abandoned, and nature slowly reclaimed the site, turning it into a photogenic yet spooky ruin. It wasn't until the 2000s that tourists began flocking to Sanji, taking photos of the abandoned pods and creating stories of a futuristic village gone wrong. Today, the pods are a symbol of both Taiwan's bold ambition and the 1970s worst architectural decisions. So if you're ever in the area, make sure to snap a photo. Just don't expect any aliens to be hanging around. Number 11. Orador Surlan, France. In southwestern France, there's a village that refuses to die but also refuses to thrive. Meet Orador Surlan, a place frozen in time, not because it was too cool for the rest of the world, but because it was left in ruins after one of the darkest moments of World War II. If you're looking for a spot to visit that combines tragedy, mystery, and a terrible history of vacationing, Orador is your place. In 1944, the village of Orador Surlan was just another sleepy French town, charming, picturesque, and entirely unprepared for what was about to happen. On June 10th of that year, a German Waffen-SS division decided to pay the town a visit. But instead of a friendly bonjour, they massacred 642 residents, including women and children, and set the entire town on fire. The reason? Well, it's still up for debate, but the soldiers blamed the village for harboring resistance fighters. Spoiler alert, it was a terrible reason, and no one should ever behave like this, especially not in a village known for its cheese. After the massacre, the French government decided not to rebuild the village. Instead, they left it as a memorial, preserving the buildings as they were on that fateful day. Today, Orador Surlan stands as an eerie, haunting reminder of its tragic history, with its crumbling stone buildings, rusted cars, and burnt-out shells of homes. The only visitors are tourists, most likely trying to make sense of what happened, but also giving off a haunted house tour vibe. So, if you're into dark history and creepy ruins, Orador Surlan is perfect for your bucket list. Just leave your selfies at home. This place doesn't really lend itself to happiest vacation ever vibes. Number 10. Ross Island, India. Nestled off the coast of Andaman and Nicobar, Ross Island was once the vibrant capital of the British colonial empire in the region. Imagine this, a lush tropical island with grand buildings, sweeping lawns, and the kind of British colonial charm that made everyone feel like they should be sipping tea in a garden surrounded by palm trees. Sounds idyllic, right? Well, here's the twist. Ross Island is now one of the creepiest abandoned places you can visit, and not because of a ghostly curse, but because it was a little too fancy for its own good. The island was a thriving hub for the British when they set up their penal colony here in the late 1800s. Officers lived in grand stone houses. There were churches, a bakery, a hospital, even a gymnasium. It was essentially a mini British town plopped down in paradise. But here's where things took a turn. In 1941, during World War II, the Japanese invaded and took control of the island, causing the British to flee. After the war, the British never returned, and Ross Island was left to the elements, with Mother Nature deciding to reclaim what was once hers. Today, Ross Island looks like something straight out of a post-apocalyptic movie, with its grand buildings overgrown with vines, crumbling stone walls, and a very odd collection of wild animals, mainly monkeys and peacocks, that seem to have claimed the place as their own. It's like the island went to a really chic dinner party and then never came back. So if you're into abandoned places with a dash of what could have been, Ross Island is your go-to. Just don't expect to find any 5-star service. It's all wild monkeys and crumbling luxury now. Number 9. Miranda Castle, Belgium. Tucked away in the rolling hills of Belgium, there's a castle so abandoned it makes the haunted mansion look like a weekend getaway. Meet Miranda Castle, a Gothic-style beauty that looks like it was designed by someone who couldn't decide between fairy tale and mad scientist's lair. This massive, crumbling structure was built in the late 19th century, and it certainly looked like it was going to be the place for high society events. Unfortunately, it was a bit too fancy for its own good, and ultimately it became just another giant, abandoned monument to bad planning. The story begins in 1866, when a wealthy Belgian family, the de Marchand clan, decided they needed a castle to call their own. So they hired an architect to create a residence that could make every other house in the country look like a shack. They had big plans. Think chandeliers, turrets, and probably a hidden room or two for dramatic family reunions. But here's where things went awry. By the time construction was completed in 1907, the family realized that the castle was, well, way too big. Turns out 135 rooms is a bit much for a family of 5. By the 1920s, the de Marchands were out of cash, and the castle was sold to the Belgian government. It briefly served as a school for boys, but by the 1990s it was abandoned entirely, largely because maintaining a mansion this size is like keeping up with an overachieving pet iguana. Today, Miranda Castle stands empty, its once grand halls echoing with the ghosts of missed opportunities and broken budgets. It's become a popular site for urban explorers who marvel at its towering spires, eerie atmosphere, and the fact that someone once thought, hey, let's build a castle for fun. Number 8. Michigan Central Station, USA. Once upon a time in Detroit, there was a train station so grand that it could have had its own Wikipedia page for being extra. Welcome to Michigan Central Station, a colossal, majestic building that once proudly ushered passengers to and from the Motor City. Think Grand Central, but with more grit and fewer fancy hats. Built in 1913, this station was the symbol of Detroit's early 20th century glory days. It was designed to be the city's crown jewel, ornate, imposing, and frankly too nice for the rough Detroit landscape at the time. For decades, Michigan Central Station was the heart of the city, handling 200,000 passengers a day at its peak. It had everything: marble floors, grand staircases, and chandeliers that screamed, "You've arrived in style." But much like a once popular diner that got too fancy for its own good, the station's fortunes took a nosedive starting in the 1950s. The rise of the automobile, the decline of rail travel, and the city's economic struggles turned Michigan Central into a giant, empty space. By 1988, it was officially closed, and Detroit's once proud station became a monument to abandonment. For over 30 years, the station sat in a state of decay, cracked windows, peeling paint, and a distinct, haunted vibe. Local kids used it for urban exploration, and the occasional film director found its dilapidated beauty perfect for scenes in movies like Transformers, Dark of the Moon. But just when it seemed like Michigan Central Station would fade into the realm of forgotten buildings, along came a new chapter. In 2018, Ford Motors bought the station with plans to transform it into a futuristic tech hub. So, fear not, the station may have been abandoned, but it wasn't forgotten. Here's hoping Ford's new office has a few chandeliers to match the glory of its past. Number 7. Dome Homes, Florida. In the 1980s, Florida was all about being futuristic. And what could be more futuristic than a home that looks like it was dropped from space? Enter the dome homes of Cape Romano, a quirky real estate experiment that was so ahead of its time, it almost ended up being abandoned before it was even finished. Built in the 1980s by a retired oil tycoon, the dome homes were supposed to be the height of eco-friendly, hurricane-proof living. The idea was simple: round, concrete domes that could withstand Florida's frequent storms while providing a space-age vibe. Think the Jetsons, but with less flying cars and more concrete. The dream, however, quickly turned into a reality check. The area's rising sea levels, thanks climate change, and constant erosion meant that the water was slowly claiming the land, and the dome homes along with it. By the early 2000s, the property was completely abandoned, as the rising tides made the futuristic mansions feel more like futuristic ruins. Today, the dome homes are mostly submerged, with only the skeletal remains of the domes visible at low tide, giving the area a post-apocalyptic vibe that attracts curious tourists and amateur photographers. The irony? The homes were designed to be flood-resistant. So, if you're ever in the area, grab your camera and look at these half-sunken round relics of the 80s. Just don't expect to see any residents. They all left faster than you can say. I'm not sure a concrete dome was the best idea after all. Number 6. BelitzHilen Hospital, Germany. If you've ever dreamed of wandering through an abandoned hospital where history and spookiness collide, then BelitzHilen in Germany might just be your perfect haunted getaway. This once bustling sanatorium, which opened in 1902, started out with grand intentions to provide treatment for tuberculosis patients. But over the years, it transformed into a massive, eerie complex that's now more likely to be featured in a horror movie than a health brochure. The hospital complex, made up of over 60 buildings spread across a vast forest, was designed to be a state-of-the-art treatment center. At its peak, BelitzHilen housed thousands of patients and even served as a military hospital during World War I. Fun fact: Adolf Hitler was a patient here after being injured during the war. Who knew the man who would later bring about one of history's greatest disasters had once been treated in an eerily beautiful hospital that would eventually abandon him in a whole new way by leaving it to rot? By the 1990s, the complex was no longer seen as a healing place, but as a relic of its troubled past. With modern medicine moving away from tuberculosis sanatoriums and the building falling into disrepair, the hospital was abandoned. And when I say abandoned, I mean abandoned. Broken windows, peeling paint, and hallways where you half expect to hear the faint sound of an old-timey doctor muttering about cures for consumption. Today, BelitzHilen is a popular spot for urban explorers and ghost hunting enthusiasts, with its crumbling walls and eerie, overgrown grounds giving off serious Silent Hill vibes. So, if you're into a little bit of history and a whole lot of creepy, this former healing hub might just be your next ghostly adventure. Just make sure to bring a flashlight and maybe a stiff drink. Number 5. Bod CA. If you've ever wanted to visit a place that's like stepping into a dusty old Western film set, but with fewer gunfights and more cracked windows, then Bod California is your dream destination. This once booming gold rush town went from hot to haunting faster than you can say, "Where did all the people go?" Bod was founded in the late 1800s during the California Gold Rush. It quickly became a thriving, rowdy town, attracting miners, gamblers, and other characters looking to strike it rich. By 1879, Bod was a full-fledged Wild West metropolis with over 10,000 residents. There were saloons, a post office, a school, and even a cemetery for those who got a little too close to their mining picks. It was, by all accounts, the place to be, if you liked loud, boisterous, and possibly illegal activities. But as is often the case with gold rush towns, Bod's prosperity was fleeting. The gold veins eventually ran dry, and as the town's resources dwindled, so did its population. By the 1910s, Bod was a ghost town, abandoned by nearly everyone except for a few die-hard holdouts who probably thought, well, there's still some good whiskey in these bottles, right? Today, Bod is preserved as a state historic park, complete with its decaying buildings and a vibe that says, we used to party really hard here. It's as if the town just stopped mid-sentence. The saloons are still stocked with bottles of booze, albeit dusty and empty, and the homes stand frozen in time, some with doors slightly ajar, as if waiting for someone to come back and ask, what happened here? So if you're looking for a place where the ghosts of gold miners still wander and history hangs heavy in the air, Bod's your spot. Just remember, the town's motto is abandoned and proud. So don't go looking for a hot meal or a trendy coffee shop. Number 4. Cmanop, southern Namibia. Deep in the desert of southern Namibia, there's a ghost town that was once the height of luxury and now, well, it's just a pile of dusty diamonds. Literally. Welcome to Cmanop, a once thriving mining town that proved you can be too successful, especially when you're mining diamonds in a desert. The town was founded in 1908 when a German miner discovered the mother lode, diamonds. Suddenly, Cmanop became a flashy oasis in the Namibian desert, filled with grand houses, imported furniture, and champagne flows. Well, probably they were German, after all. The town quickly turned into a luxurious outpost for diamond miners and their families, complete with a hospital, ballroom, and even a housekeeper for each resident. Yes, because what's a desert diamond mine without an entire staff to keep the sand out of your crisply pressed linen? But, as is the case with many sudden riches, Cmanop's good times didn't last forever. By the 1950s, the diamond fields began to dwindle, and the mine's once prosperous operation fell into decline. The miners packed up and left, and soon Cmanop was a desolate shell of its former self. All the fine furnishings were abandoned, leaving behind an eerie collection of vintage furniture, dusty chandeliers, and the world's most bizarre collection of forgotten luxury. Today, Cmanop is a popular tourist destination, but instead of diamonds, visitors find themselves exploring the town's Art Deco homes, grand ballrooms, and ghostly remnants of opulence. It's like a really fancy abandoned house party without the party. Just be careful not to wander too far. You might stumble upon a rogue diamond that's just chilling, waiting for you to find it. Or, you might just trip over a fantastic story to tell. Number 3. Googy Island, China. If you've ever wanted to explore a place that looks like it was plucked straight out of a dystopian novel, look no further than Googy Island in China. It's like an abandoned amusement park crossed with a creepy, forgotten resort. Imagine a giant complex that was supposed to bring joy and luxury, but instead ended up being a massive whoops that no one is talking about. Googy Island, located just off the coast of Zhuhai in southern China, was once envisioned as the perfect retreat for both tourists and the wealthy elite. In the 1990s, developers had big dreams: build a luxury hotel, amusement park, and resort complex that would rival anything Disney had to offer. They started building, complete with grandiose plans for high-end resorts and even a futuristic theme park. The idea was that Googy Island would be the place for vacationers to escape the hustle and bustle of mainland life. There was just one little problem: no one really came to visit. The island's development hit major snags. The infrastructure was poorly planned, construction was half-hearted, and by the time it was finished, the demand for such a lavish getaway had already evaporated. The complex was abandoned before it could even open its gates. If you've ever wondered what happens when a dream resort meets the harsh reality of poor planning, Googy Island is the answer. Today, Googy Island is a forgotten, crumbling monument to China's past ambitions. like the world's largest ghost hotel. It's overgrown with vines, its empty theme park rides swaying in the wind like forgotten nightmares. Sure, tourists visit now, but only those with a taste for the macabre and a good camera. So if you're into exploring weird, abandoned places that were supposed to bring happiness, but instead became slightly sad and a lot creepy, Googy Island is waiting for you. Just don't expect any room service. Number 2, the Ryugyong Hotel, Pyongyang. If you're looking for the ultimate in unfinished luxury with a dash of what were they thinking, then look no further than the Ryugyong Hotel in Pyongyang, North Korea. Dubbed the Hotel of Doom by some and the worst hotel you'll never stay in by others, this colossal 105-story skyscraper has a history more complicated than a bureaucratic red tape convention. Construction of the Ryugyong Hotel began in 1987 with grand aspirations. North Korea wanted a shiny, futuristic hotel to match its communist glory. The building, shaped like a giant pyramid because why not, was set to be the tallest hotel in the world and a symbol of the country's unstoppable progress. The only problem? It was being built in a country that had some trouble finishing, well, anything. By the early 1990s, construction hit a roadblock, financial problems, Cold War fallout, etc. And the hotel's massive, glassy exterior stood as a monument to ambition and not much else. For years, the Ryugyong Hotel became an infamous eyesore on the Pyongyang skyline. Locals dubbed it the hotel that would never open. But North Korea didn't give up hope. They continued to tell the world it was going to open any day now, which, spoiler alert, didn't happen. It wasn't until 2011 that some serious work was done on the building, including adding a shiny glass facade to make it look somewhat presentable. Still, despite a couple of attempts to open it, the Ryugyong Hotel remains empty, with its lavish interiors unoccupied and its promise unfulfilled. So if you ever find yourself in Pyongyang and are hoping to stay at the world's tallest hotel, remember, the Ryugyong Hotel is waiting for you. Just don't expect to check in anytime soon. It's a work in progress, in the most generous sense. Number 1. Pripet, Ukraine. If you've ever wanted to visit a place where time stands still and everything's a little too quiet, like the set of a post-apocalyptic movie, then Pripet, Ukraine, is your ultimate destination. Welcome to a town that got abandoned so fast, it makes the phrase "fly by night" seem like a casual stroll. Pripet was founded in 1970 as the model Soviet city, clean, modern, and designed for the workers of the nearby Chernobyl nuclear power plant. The town had everything: schools, theaters, parks, and even a fun fair with a Ferris wheel. It was the ideal place to live if you ignored the fact that it was built next to a nuclear plant and that safety protocol was more of a suggestion than a rule. Then came April 26, 1986, the day the Chernobyl disaster turned Pripyat's idyllic life upside down. After the catastrophic explosion at the nearby nuclear reactor, authorities evacuated the entire town in a matter of hours, thinking it would only be temporary. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. Everyone was told to pack up, leave their belongings, and don't worry, it'll all be fine. Well, it wasn't. Fast forward to today, and Pripyat remains one of the most famous ghost towns in the world. Its once vibrant streets are now a bizarre collection of half-empty buildings, rusting playgrounds, and eerily intact personal belongings, like the abandoned dolls that now give off serious horror movie vibes. Tourists come to Pripyat for the authentic experience of seeing a city frozen in time, but they don't stay long. Why? Because, well, radiation. But hey, if you can handle a bit of radioactive sightseeing, with plenty of protective gear, Pripyat offers a glimpse into what happens when you build a dream city too close to a nuclear meltdown. It's a vacation spot with a little extra glow. So there you have it. 15 massive abandoned structures that went from the next big thing to, oops, never mind. These once ambitious projects now serve as a reminder that not all grand ideas are destined for success, and sometimes the best plans are just a little too ambitious. From crumbling castles to half-finished skyscrapers, each of these places has a tale of glorious potential gone wrong. But hey, at least they make great Instagram photos for those who love a touch of mystery and decay. Just don't expect a hotel room or room service. These places are on permanent vacation.